Hi there, I'm Kyle Woody at Jack's Caregiver Coalition, where our mission is to improve the way that guys think, feel, and act in their role as a cancer caregiver. Thank you for helping us shine a light today on Mr. Brian Zahn. Brian's a humble guy with a huge heart, a guy who inspires us because when Jax reached out to him, he had the courage to accept the help. And he has over and over again ever since reached out to many other caregivers in an effort to serve them. Jack's message was simple. Serve the caregiver, he said. They're always forgotten. A message I just happened to be the first person to receive. We're here to serve you, they said, and they were looking at me. That moment, those words, and the service I experienced changed my life forever. Today, we're proud that at Jax, we've served hundreds of cancer caregivers, and that 97% of those we've surveyed believe we contributed to their sense of improvement as a caregiver. The accomplishments we're proudest of, though, are the stories. The stories of caregivers in our programming showing up for each other in meaningful, intangible, and inspiring ways. Stories like you're going to hear from Brian. How they've lent an understanding ear during an uncertain time. How they've joined each other's caregiving teams. How they've provided solace when it's needed most. And how they've provided community long after their caregiving days are over, be that through remission of the disease or through the loss of their loved ones. These are the stories that are the purpose of this campaign. And these are the stories that with your help, we'll be able to create many more of. You see, for most guys like Brian, caring for a loved one with cancer is a world of relentless uncertainty and isolation. Two things we've all had a taste of in this new era of COVID-19. Two things that breed fear, anxiety, exhaustion, and depression. And two things, unfortunately, that cause many guys to isolate themselves even further because they were taught that reaching out is a sign of weakness. But we imagine a very different future for guys who are caregivers. A future you can help us make a reality. Our vision is a community for these guys. And the community that we imagine will someday ensure that every caregiver experiences solace and renewal every single day. A community that will inspire and equip these caregivers to face their challenges boldly, with energy, with enthusiasm, and with confidence. A community that will someday give an entire team of highly equipped caregivers to everyone facing catastrophic illness. In closing, I want to express our gratitude for our campaign host, Mr. Rich Anderson, for our producer, Chris Cloutier, for the support of Sam Moss sharing his incredible story, and of course, today's honoree, Mr. Brian Zahn. We appreciate their support in making today's broadcast a reality. And on behalf of everyone at Jax, we want to thank you for considering helping us make 14 more of these stories real.
Hey everybody, Rich Anderson here with Jack's Caregiver Coalition Shine the Light episode number 5. I'll be your host once again, and I am a Jack. That means that I am caring for somebody who is going through cancer. My wife has had colon cancer for 5 years, and she continues to live with cancer, and I continue to be a caregiver, which makes this program a particular honor for me. Not only do I get the opportunity to fraternize with other Jacks, but I get to hear their stories and find out how their caregiving experience has gone, what it is that really helped them through the process, what they're doing to pay it forward, and all the different stories in between. And so far, we've talked to a number of Jacks. A couple of the Jacks have gone all the way, and they've seen their caregiver pass on and had to figure out what life after cancer was like. Some of them are still in the struggle. They're still caregiving every single day. And today's honoree, Mr. Brian Zahn, is really no different. He's got a story to tell. I can't wait to tell you more about it. And before we get to that, just a quick heads up. We have episode 6 coming up in a couple days as well. You get to meet Chris Meuleners. Chris and Amanda are also got a heck of a story. I know them both and have spent time with them. And so I'm really looking forward to that episode as well. As another reminder, we are trying to shine the light on as many jacks as possible. And that means this is a fundraiser. You'll see the URL right here on the screen. And when you have an opportunity, please go to that URL and give us a donation. We would like to enable 14 more caregiving stories. We'd like to shine the light on 14 more people and help them get through their caregiving experience, their biggest and boldest self. All right, so there it is, jackscaregiverco.org/shine the light. And with that, we'll bring our guest, Mr. Brian Zahn, into the studio. Brian, quite the studio, right? I mean, seriously, the virtual world doesn't get much better.
No, this is perfect.
As we were talking before the show, I'm actually in front of one of the better golf courses in America, Pasatiempo, at my in-laws' house out by the pool, because that was the best place for me to sit. And here you are in your living room, probably quarantining away so that you're all protected. How you doing today, Brian?
Doing good. Yourself?
You know, it's been a busy travel. I was thinking I would be back in Minnesota when we scheduled this time, but as my daughter says, this is a make it work moment, and we are making it work with the power of virtual technology. So welcome to the show. Have you had a chance to see any of the shows yet, Brian?
I have watched a couple of them, yep.
All right. Yeah. Well, hopefully this one will be even more exciting, at least for you, since you're the main character. So since you're part of the Jack's Caregiver Coalition, that means that you either were or are a caregiver for someone going through cancer. So tell us a little bit about your story, who it is that you're caring for, and where you are in that part of the journey now, Brian.
So I caregave for my wife, Melissa, she's got diagnosed in 2011 and just found a lump kind of a thing, and went in and, we found out, did the biopsy, found out it was cancerous, and she decided to do the double mastectomy just to be safe, and went through that whole thing. And then, 2 years later, we thought we were kind of in the clear, and they did one last scan, to make sure, and found it had come back, and it had actually, transferred into the liver as well. So now it was stage 4 because it had, multiple organs now. So that, and, she did the chemo with the with the double mastectomy, and then it was just more chemo after that. After they found it again, more chemo, and then things would work. It'd be up and down kind of a thing. Things would be the same and then shrink a little, but then it'd get bigger, and it was just kind of back and forth. And they just kept trying different ones. One would work for a while, and then it would stop, and then we just kind of ran out of options for chemo, because they had tried so many by this time that she wanted to try and do just the whole natural thing, and so we went to like a natural doctor and tried that for a few months, and things just really didn't get any better. Not that it didn't get extremely worse right away. It seemed like it was helping right away, but I think it might have been too late at that point, because it was only about 3 or 4 months after she started the natural stuff that it just kept going downhill, and then she ended up passing away in 2018. So, yeah.
2018. So how many years were you caregiving, give or take? I know some of that you were in a little bit of remission, but from beginning to end, how many years was that?
It was about 6.5 years, yeah.
And you had how many years in the middle where it was a little more in remission? Was that a couple of years or?
Yeah, it was like a couple of years, yep.
So one of the common threads that other Jacks I've spoken to have resonated with is this roller coaster ride, this emotional roller coaster ride. And I read a blog that Mike McGarry is pulling together for you. I'm sure that all the listeners will have something to look forward to in the coming months. But you mentioned that when she actually went for that PET scan, and it might have even been the first scan when you first found out that she had cancer, you didn't even suspect it. You went on a vacation and she had a lump and she kind of went in, and next thing you know, you got the phone call saying you need to be here right now. And so, tell me about that and start that emotional roller coaster ride, right? So that whatever that first call is probably that dip, right? You go up the roller coaster in life and you guys are a happy couple looking to live life together, and now the roller coaster dip starts, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, then at that point we were just trying to have a kid too, so we're, going through that process. And yeah, she called me. I think I was on my way home from work, and yeah, you could tell something was wrong just by the sound of her voice. And, the fact that she didn't want to tell me over the phone, she wanted me to be right next to her. And, I didn't. At that point, I'm like, well, I need to know. I'm not, it was tough to just say, okay, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Just, you want to know what's going on. And then she just kind of blurted it out. And like I said in the blog, it was just, there's so many thoughts that are going through your head at that point. What's the first step you're going to do? You have something, not many people have gone through. You don't even know what to think at that point, so
it's one of those things. And another theme, and we'll get back to the roller coaster theme here in a sec, but there's another theme that comes up regularly, and it's the concept that unless you've been here, it's just hard to empathize or truly get what that was like. And this is one of those that moments. Until you've gotten the call, or until you've looked in the doctor and seen the look in their eye that they're going to say that C word, you can't comprehend what that feeling is like. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And for me, it was 5.25 years ago. And I remember like the exact moment when the doctor looked at us and said, it's cancer. And I think any other Jack I've spoken to remembers that day, right? You remember that moment, that feeling, that emotional angst.
Yeah.
And so Brian, I believe, as I remember the blog, so one of the first things that you and many other Jacks do is you say, now what? Right? Like, what's your next step? And you immediately start trying to climb. You're trying to turn that roller coaster so it goes back up a little. Like, you need something to grab onto. What was that for you? Was that chemo, or was that research, or how quickly did you have to make some decision there?
It was pretty quick. I think the the decision to go a double mastectomy rather just take out a lump, that was probably our first big decision.
Yeah.
And she was all about it. That was more her decision than mine.
Right.
I mean, but
as it probably should be.
It should be, totally, yes. And I was all for it. Rather be safe than some that they didn't catch in the other one. So
yeah,
better be safe. Yeah.
It's a heck of a journey. So let me switch the focus a little. So we have Melissa in our sights here. We know the situation. You didn't meet Jax at any point in this journey until after she had passed. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. But who in your life were you leaning on at this point? Do you have a good friend? Do you have a neighbor? Were you calling a family member? Who was your rock that you could turn to when you needed to, be emotional?
I guess I'm the type that I just kind of bottle it up, kind of a thing, and think about her more than myself. So
yeah, so I kind of set you up there, Brian, because Jack's caregivers have done research, and we found that a significant majority, somewhere north of 75-80% of Jacks report that they didn't have help during their caregiving journey. And so here you are in some of the most challenging roller coaster rides of your life. And you're doing exactly what a lot of jacks do, which is to, kind of muscle it and get through it and do your best. That's it's a little
Yep.
bit crazy, right?
It is, but yeah, I mean, at that point, I'm just trying to think about her and keep her positive, and yeah.
Yeah, well, good for you. And by the way, I can't say I was much different. and so here we go. We're doing the double mastectomy. We're doing the chemo. We're doing the radiation.
Yep.
Um, as she's going to the different treatments, and you guys are talking about having kids. Somewhere in there, you must have had a fairly meaningful conversation, because if I'm right, you have a son.
We do, yes.
Yeah. So somewhere in there, a kid sneaked into the picture. How does that happen?
Well, that was actually one of the first, decisions we had to make too, because, right away they pretty much said, if with the chemo and all this stuff, you're not sure that you would even be able to have kids.
Right.
Even 2 years down the road, when everything's fine, the chemo might do so much to your body that you still might not be able to have kids. So then we had the option to go first and store some embryos, so we did that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like I said, this is my 5th episode. That's the first time I've gotten to hear that story, so that's pretty cool. And since you do have a son, one of the embryos must have worked. How did that work? How did that play out?
So that's another interesting story. But yeah, so we stored embryos, and then, like I said, 2 years down the road, the cancer had come back. So then we pretty much knew she wouldn't be able to carry. And it was another probably 2 years or so after that, 2, maybe 3 years, that, just all of a sudden, Melissa worked she's a teacher, and she was a dean at a elementary school. So just one of the teachers in the school came up to her and just, said that she wanted to carry, it was something that she had thought about a long time, and she would love to carry our child. Yeah.
That is, what a gift. What an amazing offer for someone to make.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Well, so super incredible. I just want to pause for a moment, Chris, and just remind everybody that folks like Brian here are the reason that we have the Jack's Caregiver Coalition. We want to shine the light on people like Brian, but as he said, he was just muscling it, just trying to get through it. I'm sure he would agree that these trips to the chemo and to the radiation and to the doctor and to the PET scans and learning all the vocabulary that we had no idea that we needed to learn, full fox and full fury and different types of proton beam radiation and mastectomy and stage 1, 2, 3, 4, things that you just didn't need to know prior to being in this role. And one of the challenges that we found, and Brian, I can't wait to get back and talk to you about this, is when we bottle it all up and we try to tackle it ourselves, what you find is you become like a tea kettle that just is building up all this pressure, and it needs to vent steam. And what we found is these events, and I know that you and I have been to a couple events together. You probably went to some I didn't go to, and vice versa. But those events are opportunities for us to blow steam in a healthy way, to interact with other people who get it, who know the vocabulary, who aren't freaked out when you talk about death, or you talk about cancer, or you talk about all the different things you talk about in the cancer world. And we're trying to raise money to do that. And so, Brian, I want to thank you again for being on our show here, telling us your story so that we can shine the light on you. And I want to get back to that right now and ask, what is it that you did to vent some steam? You didn't know about Jax yet. You hadn't met Justin. You and I hadn't met. You hadn't met Sam. What's your release? Before Henry came along, what did you do?
I'm a big sports guy, I guess, or I like to run. Running kind of for me was a big thing. I like to run and just go run and clear it, and yeah.
Yeah. Long distance sprints. What, you just kind of jog? What's your deal?
Usually I'd go 4 to miles.
Okay.
But actually, Melissa and I both we'd done Grandma's Marathon twice. So
Wow, good for you. Not have you met our next guest, Chris Meuleners? Do you know Chris?
I have met Chris. Yeah,
He's a runner.
I hear that. Better than I am.
Yeah, we might have to have a little Jack's run or something, except I would be on my bicycle instead because that's not my thing.
Yeah.
So do you still run today? Did you run during the caregiving experience, or was that something you had to give up?
During the caregiving experience, I still ran. Or we
Okay.
both. Melissa worked out even more than I did, and she was just determined to, work out, and I think that was a release for her too. So,
Sure.
yeah, I mean now being just a single dad, and Henry not being able to, completely ride a bike yet or nothing at all. Once he can get to a little bit higher stage, then maybe I can go run. But it's tough to get out right now.
Yeah,
Before
yeah.
I could push him in the stroller before, but now he's a little big for that. Pushing another 50 pounds up the hill isn't too fun.
Well, it's a workout, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like you said, when he gets on those training wheels and starts pedaling around, then maybe you can do a running twosome.
Right.
So that'll be something to look forward to. Anything else that you did to blow steam, or anything you would do? You said you're into sports. Are you into playing or watching, or what's kind of your deal there?
Yeah, I did a lot of like in the summertime, played softball. Wintertime, played broom ball. Yeah, I don't know. When I go golf, I like to play just anything.
Well, there you go. I think I smell a couple Jacks events in our future. Some sort of like, boot hockey, broom ball kind of a thing would be fun. You can take some good aggression out on that ball. Am I right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I remember playing broom ball in high school, and that's there's some good fun to be had there. And definitely any summer sport, softball's always a good one because you throw that melon over the plate and give her a good knock. That always feels good. So now Brian, you look like a younger guy. I just turned 50 this year, and I think I might have you by a few years. Does that mean that Melissa was pretty young when this all happened?
She got diagnosed. She was 27.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and passed away at 33.
It's just crazy because growing up, first of all, 40 and 50 seems super old. And so I'm a little embarrassed to say that I'm 50. As a kid, that meant like I was going to retire. But I definitely didn't think that people who are 27 years old got cancer. Turns out they do, don't they?
Yeah.
And sadly, I wished you were an exception, but unfortunately, I know several Jacks that are in similar stories where they're in their 20s or maybe even their 30s, but just real young women who are being tragically struck by cancer. I remember you in your blog, you were talking about how as the days were winding down, you had to have these conversations you probably didn't anticipate. Do you want to be cremated, and do you have a directive, and how do we deal with this and how do we deal with that? Was there anyone in your life that helped prompt those conversations? Did you work with an end of life counselor? Do you have a family member that knew to prepare for that, or is that just is that just obvious at that point?
No, we didn't prepare for that at all. And that was one of the things I think I've ever done was to ask her those questions, because at this point, all she was doing was sleeping, and she couldn't, she could talk to me, but she couldn't really write the stuff down anymore. She's just so tired, and so asking your wife these questions, when you want to tell her everything's going to be all right, and you're asking her these questions about death, it's like, you're going back. I don't know. It's feel right.
No, I know. We have life insurance policies for me and my wife, and I don't even want to look at them, right? Because it's like I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want to know the date. I don't want to know anything about it. I don't want it to happen. So you're right. It's this taboo of do we talk about it or do we not talk about it? And of course, anybody who's probably now on your side of the conversation would tell you, you need to have the conversation, right? But how do you
Yeah.
do that? So hard.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't really have anybody that was saying, "Hey, you need to have this." Besides, I think it was just one of the doctors one day. It was almost a week before she passed, and it was like, "You guys need to set this up." And
Yeah.
it still took me like 3 more days just to get to have that conversation.
Yeah. What kind of icebreaker is that? So, honey.
Right.
Yeah. Well, tell you what I want to do. I want to take a break here, and I'd like to bring in a special guest who has a recorded message for you. His name is Sam. I'm sure you know Sam as soon as I say the name. Chris is going to cue him up, and when we come back from hearing his message, I'd love to hear more about how you met Sam and got involved with Jack. So, Chris, let's hear a message from Sam Moss.
Hi guys, my name's Sam. I met Brian about 3 weeks after my wife died. Brian reached out to me September 27th of last year, and he shared his story with me. And at that moment, I knew I wasn't alone in this journey. I know that there was others that went before me, and there'll be others that go after me. That simple text Brian sent me to just say, "Hey man, I'm here. I know what you're going through. If you want to talk, whenever you're ready, I'll listen. I'm here." Following Wednesday, I met Brian for the first time. He drove down from his house down to town I live in, and we had a few beers together. And right then and there, I knew I had a friend for life, a brother-in-law. He has made a huge impact on my life. It's a journey that none of us ever would dream we'd ever be on. A journey that nobody would ever want. And Brian was there to guide me and let me know, "Hey man, these feelings are okay to feel. Sharing's okay. Speak out." He let me know everything was going to be okay. That was the big thing. I was able to see him and know that 18 months before my loss, he had the same. And way to go, Brian. Love you, man.
Pretty amazing message here. Think about that just for a second. I'll remind people we need to get more Sam and Brian connections. We need to help shine the light on people like Brian, like Sam, like Andreas, like Mark, like Chris, like all of the Jacks that we've highlighted in our Shine the Light program, but we need your help. The beers that Sam spoke of are icebreakers. These are two people who don't know each other. They're going through maybe one of the hardest things of their lives. And whether it's a beer or a coffee or a hike around Lebanon Hills, which is what I did, whether it's go-karts or axe throwing or mini golf, what we found is that guys open up when they walk shoulder to shoulder, when they do something together, when they hang out and do something. A lot of women do really well when they're face to face. They like to talk through it, but guys don't open up right away. They need something to do, whether that's playing a game of pool or throwing a dart at a dartboard, playing softball, broomball, whatever it is. And those events cost money, not a lot, right? We're trying to raise funds to sponsor 14 more Jacks over the course of the year, and we need your help. So please go to the URL on the screen and do that. And Brian, do you remember the text that you sent to Sam?
I do. I mean, yeah, I do. It was just a simple text, or at least I thought. But yeah, I mean, you don't know how some people are going to take it, and And
Yeah.
I'm glad Sam took it the right way. So, yeah.
Well, and that's exactly it. And you know, my story isn't too dissimilar. You know, I was standing at a coffee shop, and a sponsor of Jack's, who I happen to know personally, mentioned Kyle Woody's name, made an introduction, and the next thing you know, we had a cup of coffee. It wasn't anything more than that. It's like you said, it was a simple text. It was a simple introduction. But one of the
Yep.
challenges we find is that people don't know about Jack's, whether they're going through cancer, whether they're a caregiver, or whether they know somebody in that situation. Had you heard of Jack's at all during your caregiving journey or before?
Nope, not at all.
Me either. Prior to this journey, didn't know it existed. To the best of my knowledge, we are still the only nonprofit organization focused at helping male caregivers who are caring for somebody going through cancer. I find that incredible, right? Like, I don't think we want to be the only organization. We just happen to be the only organization. And that's truly a tragedy given how many people are struggling with cancer. Have you kept in touch with Sam since that initial text?
Yeah, we have. You know, we've gone to one event for sure together, but yeah, we went out, you know, after that initial, you know, beers or whatever. We went and did dinner one time, and then, like I said, we went to an event together. Yeah, we'll text every now and then, just see how each of us are doing, and yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So let's rewind a little bit. He wasn't how you found out about Jack's, and it wasn't me either. How did you find out about Jack's?
So almost the same situation with Sam is, you know, and like actually might have been the day of or the day after Melissa had passed, and I got just like a message on my phone, like a Facebook message or something, from Justin Nicolay, that who is one of the founders of Jack's, that you know, it was odd because it was him saying how he was pretty much in the exact same situation as me, which seems incredible that we were both in the same situation, but it was because he had just recently lost his wife. He's got a 2-year-old son. You know, it's like almost same thing, and I'm like, okay. So yeah, it was he pretty much said, you know, hey, you know, if you're willing to talk or have a beer, you know, let me know. And you know, at that point, I didn't feel ready. You know, I had so much going through my head already at that point that I didn't want to reach out just right away. I wanted to just clear my head, get some things lined up, and so it was probably like 2 months later, I finally, you know, texted him back and said, hey, you know, I'd love to get together, and we went and had a couple beers somewhere, and yeah, shared our stories, and yeah, I mean, it was great to talk to somebody that, you know, knew what you were going through. So
yeah. It's for good or for bad, the Jack's organization definitely has people who've been there and done that. It's pretty cool that somebody, I guess I don't know who, but somebody must have let Justin know your situation and that you might be open to hearing from him. Did you ever find out who made that introduction, or?
I did not. I mean, he kind of said, I mean, it was somebody, you know, my wife worked in Shakopee for so long in the school system and everything. I think it was just somebody that he knew that lived in Shakopee that you know, knew he was part of this organization. So
yeah. Are you still south of the river down there?
I am. I live in Jordan. Yep.
All right, I'm in Savage, so we're both kind of Southerners there.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So now, which you said you've been to an event or two. Why don't you pick one and tell me what event you went to?
Oh, geez. Oh, I've been to about 6 or 7 of them, but I'd say one of the coolest ones was probably the skydiving one. I think you were there too.
Yeah.
It was not I guess indoor skydiving.
Yep.
So, different than skydiving, but I think that was probably one of the coolest ones I'd done. So
that was crazy. I was kind of unsure as to what that would be like, and I remember just being wowed in awe, thinking that was so cool. And you know, and boy, you can tell what a tight-knit group we have, because I think of the 5 episodes or 6 episodes we have scheduled, at least 4 of us, 3 or 4 of us who are involved with the Shine the Light campaign might have been there. So that was a good event. Andreas and Chris and you and I, and heck of a great. And so, Chris, thanks for popping that URL up for me. Just a reminder, those events like the skydiving or axe throwing, they do cost money, but they give us the opportunity to meet one another. Please go to our URL, pop in a donation. Doesn't matter if it's $5, $10, or if you sponsor a Jack for a year, that could be $750, right? Like whatever you have, great. Go ahead and pay it forward. Our goal is to raise $10,250. And I was told prior to this event, we were about 31% of the way there. We have this episode and one more episode to go, which means we're right on track. And I'm also pleased to announce that we do have a matching donor. So up to the first $3,500 will be matched. If we get $3,500, that means we're $7,000 of the way there. It means we just need another 35, or give or take $3,000, a little more above and beyond that. Super excited to have you here, Brian, helping us raise some money and learn more about that. Let me transition down as we go down the home stretch here. So we've heard your story. We've heard the people that introduced themselves to you. You've now paid that forward and reached out to other folks, and you're helping them get through the journey. Put yourself in the shoes of that first introduction, that person that you meet at work or at a school function, or maybe Henry has a playmate and you find out that the father of his friend is going through that story, and they're in the midst. What advice do you give to that person? You've walked the journey, and I know that everybody's journey is different, and there is nothing. It's kind of like having a child, right? No matter what somebody tells you about having a child, it's still something you have to figure out on your own. It's just, there is no book to tell you that. But what advice would you have for them, Brian? How could you help them as they're in the middle of that journey?
I mean, my biggest thing was just staying positive, I guess, for Melissa's sake, trying to, and she was pretty positive throughout the whole journey, which helped quite a bit. But just, she, I mean, when we went out and talked to people, she completely positive the whole time. Behind closed doors was a little different. She'd kind of, break down, but just telling her that everything was going to be okay was, just trying to comfort her. And, I would, like I said, I wish I would have known that Jax was around while I was going through the whole thing. So then, you could take that little break and get out, and, that's the other thing, is that's what these events are about, is get out, get kind of away from all this stuff a little bit, just to clear people's heads. And yeah,
it's a great point. And I've had this discussion with folks that are still in the journey, and there's this guilt, this caregiver guilt. I'm sure you felt it when you were a caregiver as well, that as much as you might want to go play softball or broomball or skeet shooting or whatever, you feel guilty because the person going through the journey can't, right? They're at home, they're recovering from chemo, they whatever stage they're in, they're struggling with that. And one of the things that I had to learn was that my wife actually wanted me to go do that for myself. She wanted me to go have a little bit of fun, go take a break. Obviously, you didn't know about Jax when you were going through your journey, but how do you suppose Melissa would have felt about that had she known about Jax?
I think she would have thought it'd been great. I mean, it's at some point you gotta take care of yourself as well. Otherwise, if you don't get out a little bit, you might make yourself go crazy a little. You know what I mean? So you need to, I feel like you need to get out, and I feel like she would have thought that too. I mean, that's why, she was okay with me going play softball or these things like that. Otherwise, I mean, if she wasn't, I would have been sitting right next to her. So she probably wanted to kick me out a couple of times,
Right. Yeah, for your own good. Well, and you bring
Yeah.
up another good point, and again, I've had other caregivers say this. I believe it wholeheartedly that if we don't fill our own cup, it's really hard to fill somebody else's. And we have to remember that your cup runneth empty, you are not a good caregiver. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. If I was ornery, or if I was tired, if I was angry, if I was not a great caregiver. And what I found is just by taking those couple hour breaks, two things happened. One, somebody else got to come hang out with my wife, and they actually enjoyed it and they felt great being able to do that. My wife had a good experience with that because I wasn't the ornery one sitting there. But second, when I came back from a Jack's event, I was recharged. I could tell a story. I could talk about, go-karting or whatever the thing was. And so we both won.
Right.
That to me, that's one of those things that, if you'd ask me that question, what would I tell other Jacks? I would say make sure you take care of yourself and recharge those batteries so that you can take care of your loved one. You agree?
I completely agree. Yep. And like you
Yeah,
said, to have something to share rather than, you talk about cancer and all this stuff so much that to have something else is, yeah, way better than talking about cancer again and again, you know.
for sure. Well, and for both of you. Well, let's
Right.
end on a positive note. Tell me a little bit about Henry. What's he about, and what's he love doing?
He he is a busy kid. He's my world. I love him so much. Right now he's into, it's always trucks and trains and planes. Anything that moves, he's into it.
Yeah.
Started playing t-ball finally, so
Holy moly, how old is he?
he's 4.5.
Wow,
So
T-ball at 4.5. That's got to be fun.
yeah, it's pretty comical.
Pretty comical, yeah. Well,
There's
that's what a
missing the
great blessing and a legacy from Melissa and you to be able to have a child, and every time you look into his eyes, I'm sure you think of her. So it's the gift that keeps on giving, right?
Yep.
Pretty phenomenal. Brian, I want to thank you for your time here at Shine the Light. Thank you for passing on the word. Thank you for paying it forward and helping other folks who are going through their journey and helping shine the light on them. Thanks for everything that you're doing to our community. Thanks to Sam, of course, for sharing his thoughts with you. I hope that you two stay in touch and continue to shine the light on each other. I also want to thank
Right.
Justin for reaching out to you and introducing you to Jax. I'm glad that you followed up on that invite and got involved. Thanks, of course, to Kyle for getting me involved so that I got to meet you. And last but not least, thanks to our producer, Chris Cloutier, for sending all those graphics across the screen and keeping you and I sounding and looking pretty. It's a great organization. It's an honor to be a part of. And Brian, I just thank you. Is there any parting thank yous or words that you'd like to share with our viewers?
I want to say thank you to Justin too.
Yeah.
He's the reason that we're here, and yeah, I'm so glad that I got to meet, him and get into this organization, and yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, I'm sure he'll be watching, and he's probably pretty happy you're joined as well. So Brian, continue. I look forward to keeping in touch. Have an awesome life and keep shining the light, my friend. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.